Hi, my name is Sohan and I'm a rising sophomore at Xavier High School. My main project is the gesture control car with accelerometer. So my goal for this third milestone is to create the final code for my base project. So here's a demonstration of my final code in use. So just to show you, this is the transmitter, and then my car is the receiver. So I'm just gonna hold this up like this. So then right now it's on. So when I tilt this receiver, it turns on. When it's flat, it stops. So if it tilts this way, it turns one way. Tilts the other way, it turns the other way. Then when I tilt it forward, it goes forward. And when I tilt it backwards, it goes backwards. And in the middle, it stops. So in order to create this code, the first thing I did was I transferred one of the two variables I needed. So first I transferred one of the variables with the NRF modules to the from the transmitter to the receiver. And with only one of the variables, I can only go 2 of 4 directions. So I can either go side to side, forward, backwards, or any variation of 2 of those directions. And I already laid the groundwork for this from my previous milestone, where I turned on an LED with the movement of my hand. So now instead of turning on an LED, I changed it so when I use those if statements, I said like if the value is greater than a certain number to turn motors on or turn them off. So in order to do this, I just had to integrate some of my motor code into the code for this. So basically what I did is I defined like the variables and like the ports that they're connected to and things like that, and I was able to get that to work. So after that, I had one of the variables, but I wanted 2 variables because I can only, right as of now, I can only do 2 directions. But with 2 of them, I can go side to side and forward and backwards. So basically, what I had to do is, this was not an easy task because I had to do things a little differently. Because when I have 2 variables, if I'm sending 2 variables, the receiver is not going to know like which variable is supposed to go like where. So for example, if the transmitter is sending certain values, like sending 2 values specifically, and the transmitter and the receiver has those values, they're not going to know like which goes to like which if statement or what each value is supposed to do, because there's more than one. So it's gonna confuse the receiver, and it's very hard to like try to define it in like that. Instead, we use like commands. So what we did is we kind of, instead of making the receiver do a lot of work, we made the transmitter do a little more of the work. So yeah, so basically instead of doing like putting these if statements about like if it's greater than this number, do this, we did that on this module, it just turned on the transmitter. So what we did is when it reads the accelerometer values, it will say, is it greater than this number? Because we also use if statements. Is it greater than this number? If it is, it will send a 1, for example. And then all the receiver has to do is say, oh, I got a 1, so that means go forward. Or I got a 2, that means go backwards. So it's much simpler than having all these crazy values being transmitted through the NRF modules. So aside from this, I also did some important things with tidying up my robot, like the car and the glove components, and I also did some soldering to solder any loose connections. One of the main soldering things I did is to the power cables on the NRF modules. So basically on one of the NRF modules, it was very loose, and I would constantly have to like move it to get it to work. So all I did to fix this is I soldered a wire directly to the pins, which was not easy because of the close proximity of the 2 pins. But I was able to make it work, and it definitely paid off because now it works consistently. I also learned how to use a perf board because I had many wires that have to go to the 5-volt port on the Arduino Uno, which is the receiver. And so I used a perf board to connect them all together to give power to all the different components. So my goal for my next milestone, or my final milestone, is to be able to make a modification to this robot to make it even more fun and exciting. Thank you for listening.